If you're entering Q4 tired, skeptical, or wondering how to really rally your team, this episode is for you. Welcome back to Don't Waste the Chaos. I'm your host, Kerri Roberts, and today we're jumping into a topic that is important, and that is trust. I've talked about trust before on the podcast, and one of my favorite books, which is The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey. I'll link it in the show notes. But the premise is this: trust is everything in your business, and business moves at the speed of trust. So if you've got low trust for a number of reasons, let's say you've done too many pivots this year, you've had some tech headaches, you've had turnover, you've had layoffs, there is a reality of a tough year maybe that you've had, and now you're trying to regroup and recover and get the rally cry. Trust is the currency of your leadership. Let's make sure you're not bankrupting yours without realizing it. Here's why trust matters more, even after a tough year. Here's what trust is in the workplace, you guys. It's integrity, competence, and dependability. Now, so many times we would say like, yeah, for sure on the integrity piece, but would you say competence and dependability plays into it? The book that I was referencing by Stephen M. R. Covey has the 4 cores of credibility. And these are a huge part of it. 65% of employees say trust in their leaders significantly impacts their motivation and their engagement. This is on the Edelman Trust Barometer, a report that came out a few years ago. 65% of employees say trust in their leaders significantly impacts their motivation and engagement. I've done a satisfaction and engagement survey in the past before for clients. And one particular client that I'm thinking about, their survey came back and said that trust was low in the organization, and the owners were kind of pissed. They were like, gosh, we have really high integrity. We say what we're going to do. But the reason why there was a lack of trust, what we found out was there was a lack of communication, therefore a lack of clarity. Employees didn't understand what the goals were of the organization. There had been some staffing changes and they weren't quite sure what that meant and what it was going to mean for the future. They had seen some growth and they didn't know what that meant, what that was going to mean for the future. It was just a lack of clarity or communication, and it was negatively impacting trust in the organization. When trust is high, employees are 23% more likely to offer up more ideas and more solutions. I found that in a report that came out by Gallup. Companies with high trust outperform low trust companies by up to 186%. That was put out by Great Place to Work. Here's the point. If trust has been shaken for whatever reason, performance and culture will follow. So let's do a little trust audit, if you will. Now, I recommend, like I said, the book, and I'm not paid in any way by Stephen M. R. Covey. It's just a book that I love and that has helped me professionally for the last 15 years. And so there is a self-trust audit that you can do inside of this book. And of course, self-trust is the basis, and then that goes into our relationship trust, and then our organizational trust, and then eventually our societal trust. So I highly recommend that you start out with a self-trust audit, and I go in and speak on this to organizations all over the country. So if you want me to come in and do that for you, I certainly can. You can just email hi@saltandlightadvisors.com. But my point is this: we have to take a look. We can't just assume that trust is happening. We can't just assume that our employees trust us. Really, we should be auditing this and thinking through it. I want to give you an invitation during this episode right now while you're listening to pause, reflect, and ask. Don't assume. Don't assume people don't trust you. Don't assume people do. Only 21% of employees strongly agree that they trust their leadership. Gallup put that out, 21%. If that's where you're sitting, it's time to do something about it. You're not alone if you feel this gap. We need to encourage humility in our leadership team. This is not about blame. It's about clarity. So let's do a quick check-in together, a trust check-in together. And if you're driving, just think on these. If you're at your desk, just jot the answers down. So from a leadership perspective, let's do a leadership self-audit to start. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think your team currently trusts leadership? If you've got people working under you, how much on a scale of 1 to 10 do you think that they trust you or other leaders? Might be different across departments, but let's just think of at large in general on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do you think your team currently trusts leadership? Where do you think that number has slipped in the past year? Was it during a tough pivot? Was it during terminations that happened? Maybe layoffs? Maybe you did a tech rollout and it didn't go very well. Maybe you all didn't meet your marks from a revenue perspective, from a sales perspective. Maybe somebody quit in the department. What was an area that you think impacted the slip? Can you identify one decision or moment where trust was unintentionally eroded? Maybe you made a change and didn't communicate the why. Maybe you didn't get buy-in. Maybe you holed up in your office and didn't talk to people about it. Okay, second step in this audit, let's do team perception. If I asked 3 random employees today in your organization, if I said, do you trust leadership to do what they say? What do you think those 3 random employees are going to say? And would their answers match yours? All right, next step in this audit. What's one small promise you can make this week and deliver on so you can start showing consistency in this area again? Maybe we've broken trust. Maybe things have been hard. You can always resolve it. What's one small promise that you can make this week, or one thing that you can deliver on this week to start showing consistency again? Did you say you're going to do something and you haven't done it? Do it. Put it on the calendar. Do it. Okay, so when it comes to your team, do you think that they trust what leadership is going to do? Now, if you want to have additional practical steps, if you've done this audit yourself just now and you've kind of thought through, what else can you do? You can do town halls, you can do one-on-ones, you can do an anonymous survey. Where did you overpromise yet underdeliver as a leadership team or as an organization? Is there a place? Is there a place that you've overpromised but underdelivered? Remember, trust isn't rebuilt in a single town hall or in one announcement. It's rebuilt in small, everyday actions where what you say and what you do match up. And we know we can apply this to our relationships as well, right? Like whether it's with our kids or maybe in a romantic relationship or in a friendship, we've been flaky. We just have to acknowledge it. But not only just acknowledge it, we have to do things different. Because if we acknowledge it and we continue doing it, then nobody cares. But if you acknowledge it and then you show up differently, that's where trust is going to get rebuilt. Here's the principle. I want you to own missteps honestly. Transparency builds credibility even when the news is bad. So here's an example. We underestimated, let's say, the scope of this project. We underestimated how hard it was going to be to integrate this technology. We underestimated the fact that we weren't going to backfill this role, but now there's a huge gaping gap and you all are doing more than what you want to handle. So here's what we've learned. We've learned that the workload is greater, or we learned that the tech integration is going to take longer, or we learned whatever. And here's how we're going to do better moving forward. We are going to post this job opening and find a candidate, or we are going to, scale back on the scope of the project and we're going to implement it over a larger period of time, whatever that is. So we underestimated this. Here's what we learned. And here's what we're going to do better moving forward. Employees who believe their leaders are transparent are 8.5 times more likely to trust them moving forward. So a study that I saw come out by Edelman, 8.5 times more likely to trust them if you're just being transparent. You want to avoid spinning or sugarcoating. Skeptical employees are going to see straight through it, and it's going to further erode trust. We need to build credibility through consistent follow through. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. So here are some practical strategies. Start with small commitments and deliver consistently. Create visible accountability loops, like quarterly check-ins on promises, or maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, but creating those accountability loops and then measuring progress on how you're doing, whether that's surveys on it, retention rates, productivity markers. And it's like productivity markers. Well, the data that I gave at the beginning showed your employee population will be more productive if trust is high. So you can literally take the data and see based on performance if trust is high in your organization. Retention rates, people are going to leave if they don't trust you. So what are the retention rates? What are they speaking? And then survey data, of course. You need to follow through with your commitments. That's the number one driver based on a survey that I saw that PricewaterhouseCoopers put out called Trust in Business Survey. Following through on commitments is the number one driver of trust in leadership teams. Credibility is earned in drops, but it can be lost in buckets. So one thing at a time, those are trust deposits, but the whole bottom of the bucket will drop out in one misstep. But that misstep can be recovered by transparency. You know what I was talking about as far as how do we build it? Okay, we underestimated X, or, we really damaged this by doing this. Here's what we learned, and here's what we're going to do to make this better. Credibility is earned in these little deposits, but it can be lost in buckets. So we want to energize your people for Q4 and beyond. We're coming up, we're on the end of the year. And so it's time to really energize your people to the end of the year. Show them what they're doing matters. Show them how you are in it to win it as a leadership team. So we want to reframe this. People don't just want positivity. They want honesty and a path forward. We've all heard about toxic positivity by now. We don't want to just be like sunshine and rainbows because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes work is hard. A lot of times work is hard. We want to be honest and we want to give a path forward. Right now we're in the grind, but it's not always going to be this way. Here's a couple of practical tips to handle this. We want to acknowledge fatigue, normalize it, but don't dismiss it. So things are hard right now. We're pacing at a fast pace. We want to talk about how that is something that's felt in this organization. We know that. We're not dismissing it, but also here's how long we expect this to happen. And then here's the end point, the light at the end of the tunnel. And here's what we're going to do to celebrate it at the end. Focus on 1 or 2 wins to finish the year strong. And then share your why for the year. Give employees something to believe in again. Whether it's sharing your why on why 2025 went this way, that there was some intentionality behind it. And here's what it's setting you up for success for 2026. And here's our why for 2026. Trust doesn't just rebuild culture, it rebuilds energy. So I want you to do the trust audit in your organization. I want you to own your missteps and then build credibility through consistency in your actions. Here's one small thing that you can do from a leadership team. So many leaders will push off one-on-ones with their team. And I actually had a team member that was like, yeah, we don't need to meet. A lot of the time, it's just relational. It's wasting time. You've got a lot on your calendar. We don't need to meet. And what I said was like, number one, that's not your decision to make. I do that with intentionality. So let me explain to you my why. I put that time on our calendar. If I've got outstanding emails due to you, we can tackle those at that time. If you have things that have been frustrating you or obstacles or barriers or things that you need answers on, we can address those at that time. And we also get to connect relationally. I have a fully remote team. And so we don't have the water cooler talk. We don't get to chat while we're heating up our lunch. And so that time is sacred and it's important. And I keep it on the calendar. And whether you see that I'm busy or not, that time needs to happen. Sometimes it's relational, sometimes it's tactical. Both are very, very important. What I don't want to do as a leader is push that time off. And then my employees can see my calendar and see I've prioritized my prospects. I've prioritized my clients. I've prioritized friend time or whatever if I'm taking time off. But I haven't prioritized time with my team. That's going to erode trust. So even though they think like they're doing me a favor by taking that off the calendar, very important that we stay relationally connected. And of course, we've got tactical things to do too. So as a leader, if that's hooking you and you've pushed off calendar invitations from your team, or you set them and then you're like, hey, if you don't have anything, I don't have anything, we can reschedule. Don't push those meetings with your team. Maybe this week, that's what you're going to do. What's one trust building action that you can take this week? That's a small example. And if you want to learn more about ways that you can positively impact your workplace culture, whether it's practically around hiring and onboarding and performance management, or on topics like these, I'd like to invite you to join HR in a Box. These are where topics like these are explored monthly for leaders. Essentially, what I do is 60 minutes worth of teaching on a variety of different topics. Every month we tackle a big one. And then I have downloadable tools, resources, checklists, templates that I share that go along with that teaching. And then I open it up for 30 minutes for a one-on-one. where you can ask me your specific HR questions. Usually people in this group are somewhere between 5 employees and 100 employees. And you can have yourself as a business owner, or if you're a leader in the organization, or even an office manager or somebody who's trying to wrangle HR in your organization, you are invited. So just email hi@saltlightadvisors.com, or you can go to saltlightadvisors.com/contact and get signed up for that. I also, of course, always do fractional work with teams and project-based work. So if you want me to come in and do an HR audit and help you determine where you need to go next, I'm happy to do that. Listen, trust isn't about being perfect. It's about being believable. After a tough year or a tough season, your people don't need to spin, and they don't need you to sugarcoat it. They need you to show up, tell the truth, and do what you said you would do. I know leading people and leading businesses can feel like chaos. It's hard, but the work is worth it. So don't waste the chaos. Embrace it. Until next time.